Good evening, everyone. And a while ago, I made a video about hypersonic glide vehicles and hypersonic missiles. And it really upset someone who made a load of ranty comments. So they ended up getting blocked from the channel. But anyway, that got me thinking. And I did think long and hard about the subject and have been for many months. And what my understanding of hypersonics is that really hypersonics and ballistic missiles and the theory and how they work is not something that's that new, really. America was experimenting with hypersonic glide vehicles, certainly by the early 1960s and possibly within the late 1950s. So my dad is a massive space fan, and I remember reading lots of his space books when I was growing up. And a lot of this theory is well proven, established and tested, and most countries with an industrial base could develop hypersonic vehicles or ballistic missiles. What prevents them from doing so is often the will to do so and the expense. But there's nothing really that fundamentally difficult about the technologies involved, and the maths adds up. What you have to do is have intent to develop that program. Now, the reason why I think intent is important, because obviously for my whatifians, they want to deter a larger aggressor attacking them. And I think if you look back and say, if Ukraine had retained its deterrent that was kind of removed from it as part of various treaties, would Russia have invaded? And I think the answer is probably no. Now, could it use that deterrent because of the dual key system? Probably not. But anyway, if you're a state that doesn't want to succumb to aggression, having hypersonics and ballistic missiles is a really good capability to have. And I think what really cemented it for me was watching the impact of the Iranian ballistic missiles into Israel and looking at some of the Israeli technology that they were using against Iran. Things like the LAURA missile, the Rampage missile. Now, Iran has a wide variety of ballistic missiles, and it used various ones throughout its campaign. And what that got me thinking about is the Singapore 1942 effect. Now, the original person that disputed my hypersonic missile ideas, the first thing I thought of was Singapore 1942. And what happened in Singapore in 1942 was the British rested on the laurels. They had a racially superior view of what the Japanese were and weren't capable of. And effectively, they lost because they hadn't kept up with their enemy's capability, and they had a very stereotypical view of what the Japanese were capable of, and that viewpoint quickly fell apart in 1942, and really the Allies had to relearn a lot of tough lessons between 1942 and 1945. So it's certainly a mistake to say, oh, Oreshnik, oh, it's a failure, or it hasn't had an effect, because you have to bear in mind that a lot of the images that come out of Ukraine are heavily sanitized, and Israel. And why wouldn't they be? Because you don't want to give your enemy the information on their target strikes and their post-damage assessments. You want to make that difficult. So if you say, oh, I didn't hit anything, well, okay, you know, it may have done, but you want to conceal that damage anyway. That's just part of war. So what I've been working on is, in addition to the super angry butterfly drones and the roving cyclops drones, and they're designed to attrit. They're attritional. They're designed to take hits. Some will get through, some will be shot down. Is I've been working on a family of air-launched ballistic missiles and ground-launched and air-launched hypersonics. Now, I've been using ChatGPT quite a lot, and that's quite helpful, because whilst it can't give you, okay, this is what a ballistic missile does and, you know, this is how to make one, it's not allowed and that would be unwise, but it can look at the various shapes, and certainly I think that these shapes for my hypersonic cruise missiles and my hypersonic glide missiles do stack up. If you had a country that has the right technological base and the will, they can do this. Now, America has made hypersonic weapons before. It had the Spartan Sprint missiles. Technically, all IRBMs and ICBMs are hypersonic up to a point. Now, there's lots of better videos explaining that than I can do, so I'll let you go and look at those. But what I think is really important is that you've now got hypersonics in the terminal phase, and that's what makes it really hard for things like the Patriot and the Theatre high altitude air defence systems to intercept them, even David's Arrow and the Israeli systems. So there's a lot better videos talking about that. But this is my family that I've been building in 1/72. And what I've found is that actually it's quite interesting, because when you look at some of the shapes and the capability, you can have a hypersonic glide vehicle like this one here. And the idea is that the booster takes this way up into the atmosphere. And obviously, the higher up you go in the atmosphere, the faster your glide vehicle can go. However, you then hit thermal barriers, so you have to have the right materials and the right shape to do it. And that's what this black piece here is. That's the ablative thermal covering. This is your hypersonic glide vehicle with a booster there to get it going very fast into that terminal phase. And then it will position its missile bus, separate, position its missile bus, and off it goes down towards the target. This is my system, basically, the MAXWELL Silver Hammer IRBM. And this one again, you've got that ablative covering, you've got the missile bus there, singular or multiple re-entry vehicles. And the whole idea of these is that once you boost them up into the right trajectory, and once you've got them from the ground into that ballistic trajectory, then you can reach the hypersonic speeds that you need. The other option for hypersonics is a hypersonic cruise missile, which would use a scramjet. So you've got a booster here. This is an air-launched one. The booster takes it up to the right velocities, the right altitude, for the scramjet to then come into operation. Again, you've got an ablative covering. This is a lot smaller payload than this one here, but you do have that hypersonic cruise missile. Below that, and for more useful uses against targets, I've got the Sky LAURA LOGHT, which is the equivalent of the Israeli Air LAURA, which is a quasi ballistic missile, air-launched ballistic missile. Again, you've got the ablative covering. This will fly a lower trajectory, but it can be carried by warplanes. Even tactical fighters can carry the Sky LAURA LOGHT, and you've got a 600 kilogram payload in here and here and here. When you get onto bigger missiles, this is the original Sky LAURA, you can have a 1,000 kilogram payload. Again, this is an air-launched lower trajectory ballistic missile, and the idea of that is that you can hit hardened targets or the enemy's command and control centres. And if you look at Air LAURA and what the Israelis have got there, you can see how that technology already exists, and then the Russians are taking it further with things like the Kinzhal and the Zircon, etc., etc. But this technology is old and it's existed for a long time. And then I have my BIGGUS MISSILUS, which is this one here, which is a short-range ballistic missile, and that's my equivalent to the Russian Iskander. So what I've tried to do here is I've got MAXWELL Silver Hammer IRBM. So if someone really threatened the Malagasy state existentially, that could be used. I've then got a new concept here which takes the booster and gives the hypersonic glide vehicle here. The hypersonic glide vehicle is very hard to shoot down for enemy air defence because of its speed and the way it works. The bus here, the multiple re-entry bus, is again very difficult to shoot down because it can reposition itself. And then I work down to, if you like, the tactical systems, and below that would be the ATACMS, and then the GM I'll LRS. So what this gives the whatifians is it gives them a whole range of escalation possibilities to go up and down the escalation ladder, which is something that Russia and China are working on quite hard. And that's why the whatifians, being based in What If, Madagascar, are putting a lot of effort into this technology. So I hope that helps. Like I said, there's videos out there that help you understand the science better than I convey. These are just models replicating it. But I wanted to cover that this is really a growing area of warfare and something which I'm keen to model and give my whatifians both the short-range ballistic missiles and the ability to counter long-range threats up to 2,000 to 3,000 kilometres, and then up to 300 kilometres here, 400 kilometres here, and possibly 300 kilometres there. So hypersonic cruise missile, boost phase, scramjets, and then hypersonic glide vehicle type technology. So I hope that helps. Take care. Goodbye.